Learn to make the Calico puzzle quilt block. This block is easy to make. We're going to be making the 6-inch size. For this block, you will need 2 squares of fabric that are 4 1/8 inches. So I have a light color here, and then I have a dark. Also in a dark color fabric, you will need 1 square that is 2 1/2 inches. And then in a medium shade of fabric, you're going to need 4 squares that are also 2 1/2 inches. So to get started, we're going to take our 2 large squares. We're going to place them right sides together, just like this. Then we will head to the sewing machine and we will stitch around the 4 edges. Okay, so we have our 2 squares sewn together, just 1/4 inch away on all sides. We will take our little cutting mat here, and we're going to slice these squares in half diagonally in both directions. And this is going to give us 4 half square triangles. So we'll cut it this way, and then we will cut it the other way. Okay, so we have our 4 half square triangles. Before we move on to pressing them open, we need to trim them up to size. So these need to be 2 1/2 inches. So I have my half square triangle ruler, and I am just lining up the marking for 2 1/2 inches right along the seam or the stitching and trimming around the edges. So let's just do that one more time. Line up the marking for 2 1/2 inches right along the stitching. And then I'm going to trim the outside edges, and that will give us a perfect 2 1/2 inch square. Okay, so next grab your ironing mat and we will press these open. So I just like to press them towards the dark color fabric so that when I stitch them together, the seam is on the dark side and it's less likely to show through. So if you place the dark side face up and then lift and press, that will allow you to press the seam towards that dark side. Just like that. Okay, so we have our 4 half square triangles all pressed open. The last thing we need to do is just take our little scrap basket and trim the little tails off. Okay, so now it's time to assemble our block, and I find the easiest way to do this is to first create a pinwheel using the half square triangles. So I'm just going to arrange them so that they create a pinwheel. So just like this. And then I'll just take these are going to be the 4 corners, so I'll just spread them out. We'll take our dark square and place it in the middle, and then the remaining medium colors are going to go on the 4 sides. So at this point we have a 9 patch, so we'll just take them to the sewing machine and sew them together as such. So I like to just go row by row. So I'll just take the first 2, flip the right sides together and stitch right here. Then I'll come back and grab the next one, right sides together, stitch it together. So I have the first 2 pieces sewn together, and we'll just grab our 3rd little piece on this row and we'll put it right sides together and stitch along here. Okay, so we have our first row done, and we will just repeat that process with the remaining rows. And we'll just grab our ironing mat one more time. We're going to press these flat. So to ease the bulk, I like to press towards that medium color because of this half square triangle. There's an extra seam right here, so if you try to press it towards that, then you're going to end up with a lot of bulk right there. So I like to press towards the middle on the top and the bottom pieces. And then in order to nest the seams, that means that for the middle row, then I will press it away from the middle towards these outer edges. So it's just easy to remember, press towards the medium colored fabric. All right, we've got our seams all pressed so that they will interlock as we stitch them together. So we're going to take our top row, place it right sides together on the middle row, and then you'll see that we have one seam pressing one direction, one seam pressing the other direction. And this will make it so that our seams are nice and flat when we press them open, but we'll just go to the sewing machine and stitch along the edge. Okay, so you can see, since I nested the seams, we have nearly perfect points here where our blocks line up together. So that is the purpose of nesting our seams. So when you do this, you're just going to want to take your pieces and you're just going to want to butt those seams up together, and I just use my fingers and kind of feel and make sure that they're lined up, and it should feel flat, but you want to make sure that they're lined up against each other so there's not a gap as well. But so I just do that, get this first one in place, sew to here, then I will make sure that this second seam is interlocked and also to there, and finish off the seam. All right, our block is nearly complete. The last thing we need to do is just press it flat. And I find that the best way to do this is to press towards the middle, because the middle row does not have any of those half square triangles, so it will be a lot less bulky if I do it that way. So there you have the Calico puzzle quilt block. So go ahead and check out the pattern that I have that you can purchase that will have 5 different sizes in there. So there's the 6-inch size, there's a 9-inch, there's a 12-inch like this. There's also sizes for a 15 or an 18. So go check that out. But that is the Calico puzzle quilt block.